Hey, my name's Brent. Welcome back to 49cc Scoot. I was just out here in the garage trying to take a stubborn tire off of a scooter wheel, and UPS showed up with this. So I got a message a couple days ago from 190 Mech, that's John, on the 49ccscoot.com forums, and he told me that Old Geek Scott and Ryan Ott were sending me some fireworks in multiple packages, some assembly required, to help me continue to help scooter people around the world. And that's all the information that he gave me. Those are the same guys that actually gave me my mini lathe, and John just sent me the bandsaw that maybe you've seen in some of my videos recently. So I don't expect anything from these guys, but they have been really good to me about stuff like this, and they tend to continue to push me with tools to keep me moving forward when I probably wouldn't be motivated enough or have the money to do it myself. So big thanks to those guys. But anyway, this thing showed up, and it looks like they want me to put a whole lot of nitrous on one of my scooters. Well, a couple hours later, this showed up by FedEx, and it's YesWelder. It says TIG-205DS, so I was pretty sure before. Now I'm really sure what's going on here. But let's get this opened up and check it out. Here's a look at the machine, just like the box said, TIG-205DS, and it says 110/220 volt, so it looks like standard is 110, that's what comes out of the machine, and then it comes with an adapter for 220. I don't have 220, so for most of the stuff I'm doing, hopefully it works well with 110. There's the back of it. Basically looks like a computer fan, the gas connection, on-off switch. Here's a close-up of the front panel. It's got a little plastic cover here that you can flip up, I suppose, to protect the screen and stuff. I gotta be honest, this feels like a kind of cheap, brittle Chinese plastic. I hope I'm wrong about that. And I want to say, before I go any further, any kind of criticism that I have, please don't take that as anything negative or unappreciative toward the people that got this for me, because trust me, I am very thankful for what they did. Didn't expect this in any way. I'm just trying to be honest, just in case anybody else is watching this and considering getting the same thing. I just try to be honest with whatever I tell you. So again, hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe that'll last for years, but it feels kind of brittle and thin. But once you get in here, there's a digital display for some reason. To be honest, I don't know anything about TIG welding, like I said, so I don't even know what that's for at the moment. I've got a dial here. I assume that would either be voltage or feed. I think with TIG welding, my understanding is that you get a foot pedal and you do the feed that way, or by hand. I don't really know. But yeah, it's just something. And then there is a switch between TIG and MMA/arc. So I will probably be leaving this on TIG. I don't think I want to flip it to MMA because I don't even know karate. And then on the bottom of the front panel, you can see you've got connections here, and it's labeled positive and negative. So I'm guessing you hook your torch up here, and then you can hook up the ground or a holder on one or the other, positive or negative, depending what kind of welding you're doing. I'm pretty surprised at the size of the TIG welder. As you can see, this is my Hobart Handler 140 MIG and flux core welder, which honestly I only use for flux core because I've never even bothered to go out and get a tank and get gas for the thing. But if you look at those two side by side, the MIG setup is huge compared to this. There you go sideways, you can see a lot different. Again, I don't want to criticize what these guys have done for me, so don't take it that way, but I will say the Hobart feels like way heavier duty. The plastics and everything feels better. The handle on the top of it, a lot different than what I got going on here. The way it looks, it kind of looks like a PC building setup here in the back, where the Hobart is all nicely finished all the way around. I'm guessing maybe some of the size is because this thing doesn't have to have a big spool of wire and a feeding setup in there. But yeah, I would say overall, this one, it doesn't feel bad, but after getting used to this, it's definitely a different feel. All right, let's take a look at some of the stuff that came with it. So I'll start here, something simple that at least I know what it is. This is the ground clamp and the cable to hook that up. This, I assume, would be for arc welding. I don't know, maybe you use it for TIG as well, I'm not really sure. Seems to be to hold a stick or some sort of electrode, I would guess. This is the torch. Got what feels like a silicone hose for the shielding gas. It should be argon, I believe. A foot pedal. And I kind of thought a foot pedal for these would be a lot bigger than this. You can see based on my hand, that's a pretty tiny foot switch. Then I've got a steel wire brush, and then I assume this is something for working with the torch or the tips. Again, you'll have to excuse my ignorance of all this stuff. And then we've got what I would believe to be a piece of the torch and other components for the torch here. And then of course the instructions, some sealant and an O-ring in there, I assume for the hose connections for the gas. As far as the hoses and the cables, wires, whatever are concerned, everything actually feels okay to me. Again, this gas hose is silicone and the brass fittings seem to be pretty decent. The torch cable looks good. It's nicely wrapped. It's pretty similar to what I've got on the Hobart. It's got a swivel ball there. Feels pretty decent to hold it. And it's also underneath there, you can see it's nylon wrapped, so looks to be pretty good quality stuff there. That should hold up, I hope. The same for these. All these actually feel pretty good. As I noted earlier, really the only surprise with all these accessories is this foot switch that I thought would be a lot bigger or would have a lot more travel, especially. I mean, I guess there's a little more than a 1/4 inch of travel there, something like that. So I thought there'd probably be larger, more travel so you could fine tune whatever you were doing. But again, I don't know anything about the TIG process, so that may be totally normal. While I was showing you the welder, the mail lady showed up and left a package from Welding for Less on my porch and a box that is addressed to me from Scott in Myrtle Beach. So I'm pretty sure that this is also related, so let's see what this is about. 2% lanthanated tungsten. Okay, tungsten electrodes. So I don't know what to do with them, but I know it's related to welding, so yeah. Let's see what Scott sent me here. So I've got some welding rod. Again, sorry, I am totally naive of this stuff. I don't even know what's what, unfortunately. You can imagine the learning curve that's going to happen here when you actually see me try to weld something someday. Got a nice pair of Lincoln Electric welding gloves here. And they actually fit, which I wear 2XL, sometimes 3XL gloves, so that doesn't always happen. But these fit pretty well. I'm guessing you must need more hand control with TIG welding than you tend to need with the MIG and flux core with the big heavy gloves. Practice pipes, steel pie cuts 3-inch. Okay. So roughly 100 thousandths of an inch thick steel pipes here, segments. So I'm guessing that's so I can, as it says, practice pies. So I can practice getting those together at some point. Then we got a plain white box. Put these back. So yeah, plain white box. And yeah, appears to be I guess a regulator for the argon. Says it's made by Prime Weld. So yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff here, and most of it I don't even know what it is. Again, I don't know anything about TIG welding, but it appears to me that I've probably got everything I need right here to get welding, aside from, I would assume that they don't fill these bottles and then ship them. I guess being a totally inert gas they could, but I don't think that's standard practice. So I'm probably going to have to look up a local supplier and see if I can get this bottle filled. But other than that, by my untrained eyes, it looks like I probably have everything I need. And also I have to say this must have been masterminded with great efficiency, because generally we have no idea when packages are going to arrive anymore. And I had UPS, FedEx, and USPS drop all these things off, and I believe it was 4 total different packages, and they all showed up within maybe 4 to 5 hours of each other on the same day, so that's pretty impressive as well. It's now the next day. I thought I had everything on day one. I went ahead and posted on the forum to say thank you to the guys and show the other people on the forum what they did for me. And then I'm out here working on the T-Max a bit today, and another box shows up. This one says it's from Welder's Choice, and I haven't ordered any welding stuff, so I assume this must be from them as well. So that looks like some very long welding rod. Mild steel TIG welding filler rod, 45 thousandths of an inch, 1/16, 3/32, 1/8. Since the guys were generous enough to give me a nice welding setup, I wanted to get a good cart for it as well. This is certainly not top of the line or anything. This is Chicago Electric, which is from Harbor Freight. But it's $40. It's the same thing that I have on my Hobart MIG welder, and I've liked it for years on there. So I don't really see anything that's even competitive in price with it. So I just went ahead and got another one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out and see if I can get it all assembled. After getting it together and looking it over, I'm pretty pleased with it. It looks for the most part like the cart that I've had for years, which is what I expected since it's the same thing. However, it appears that they're saving money on these little brackets here on the side, the things that you can hang your wires off of. And it's a really poor way to save money if that's what they're trying to do, because there are sharp edges all over these things. Like all the way down this edge, these corners are sharp, and it's like that on both of them, so it's not just a fluke on one of them. I took both of the hooks off and sanded them down, so now there are no sharp edges anywhere. Repainted them so they actually do match, unlike before where they were flat black. Not that it really matters. And since I got that done, I also went ahead and called a couple of gas suppliers in the area. Around here I've basically got one option 10 miles away, one option 20 miles away, and then they all get further and further away than that. So I called the one 10 miles away. They wanted $66 for 80 cubic feet of pure argon. And the one 20 miles away wanted 45, so I went with them. That was Robert's Oxygen. So I guess I'm going to see if I can get the tank on here. I'll put the welder on here and see if I can figure out how everything gets hooked up. Well, I don't think I'm going to be welding today because that's just not going to work. I'm not sure exactly what kind of fittings these are, but I'm going to have to figure it out. I guess I either need to replace the regulator or this piece of the regulator, or I have to replace the hose, or I have to see if there are couplings for this. But yeah, obviously not going to work this way. It's a little awkward with the way this wants to sit, because if I set it all the way over here, then the cord runs into the bottle. If I set it over here, then the gas connection runs into the bottle. So for right now, I just took a chunk of 2x4 that I had around and I'll set that in there. I think maybe once I get used to it and kind of see how everything works out for me, I may end up making some plates here or something to stop it and set it exactly where I want. As you can see, I've got plenty of room over here. It can move all around, so I think a plate here and one in the back might be kind of nice for me. I guess I'll start with the easiest connection, which is the torch, because it really can only go in one spot. I thought the little end connector would kind of lock on or something, but I guess it just sort of sits there. Now for this connection, I found out that you actually have two options, because the foot controller and it both have the same connection. So you can use the foot pedal, or you can actually use this handle and this little button here. You press it in and then it kind of goes up like a dial and down. There's not a whole lot of adjustment there, but that will work as well. I'm going to start off with the foot pedal when I first try it, because my understanding is that gives you better control, and I have no idea what I'm doing, so maybe that'll help. It looks like the threads are kind of rough in this thing, which, from being around a lot of Chinese scooters, I know that's not uncommon, so it makes things a little tougher to deal with than they need to as far as getting them started the first time. I actually ordered a small organizer when I ordered the welding cart from Harbor Freight, because I thought it might come in handy for all of this stuff, but that didn't show up at the same time, so I guess I'll see that eventually. I did some quick searches and I found that most of the regulators that look like this one come with an adapter from 9/16 18 to 5/8 18, just like the one I'm holding now. So I posted about it on the forum, and it turns out that Scott actually still had this in his shop, so he went ahead and sent me that. And he also sent me another tungsten electrode with a green end. At this point, I'm still learning enough that I keep forgetting what's what, but yes, thank you again to Scott for sending that, as well as the different electrode. I wrapped the connector on the end of the hose with Teflon tape as well. It has a spherical connector here, and it seems to match up inside of there, so I think it should seal itself, but I kept it away from the end of the thread, so it shouldn't hurt anything. On the back of the welder, the connection has an O-ring inside there. I don't see anything spherical to match up with this, so I went ahead and wrapped that one as well. Maybe it's not normal to do this, I'm not sure, but I'm not used to all these connections, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the bottle on and see if I can just make sure everything's sealed by spraying some soapy water around all the connections. Okay. Not sure what happened there. I started to open this and now The ball just dropped like nothing's coming out. Shows pressure here, so I don't know what that means. That doesn't seem like a good thing. Well, at any rate, let me just at least test this stuff. Don't see any bubbles there. I'm going to assume they made a good connection with the bottle, but why not? Nothing there. That looks good. I'll check the gauge. I don't even know if anything's making it out past here because the ball's not up in the air and this valve is open, so yeah. I just finished a quick search and it looks like what I'm seeing with the regulator is actually totally normal, so I'm worried for no reason. It's just because, again, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing right now. But this is bottle pressure, and it does make sense that whether the bottle is open or closed, the pressure gets trapped in here. Until the gas moves somewhere, the pressure is going to be trapped in this gauge, so you're going to see it there. The ball is actually only supposed to float when there is flow. So if no gas is moving, the ball is not going to float around. That means the welder actually has to be active, or for some reason gas has to be flowing through there to see the ball float around and be able to tell where your pressure is. So I've opened this up a little bit, and I'm going to try to set this to something like 10 to 12 CFM, or maybe as much as 5 liters per minute, just from some basic research that I've done online. I'm thinking I'm going to start somewhere in that range. So yeah, let's see how that goes. I've got the pedal set up, so I'm just going to press on the pedal and hopefully the ball moves like it's supposed to now. There we go. Let's try to adjust this. Now I need to set up my torch. So this is what I've got to work with. I've got, I guess it's the nozzle. I only have one of those, so that's good. I don't have a lot of choice. And then these are collets, and I'm gonna need whatever fits 3/32. So 3.2, that's 3.2 millimeters. This one says 2.4, so 2.4 millimeters should be close to 3/32, so I'm going to need this. I know I need this tailpiece, whatever it's called. And then I've got 3 cups here, a 4, a 5, and a 6. And basically, they just get larger or smaller and let different amounts of gas through. At least that's my understanding of why you'd use one. So I am going to go ahead and just work in the middle with a number 5, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to start out with a blue one. At least it looks like these should be kind of all-purpose, if I can get them open. Okay. The electrode needs to be ground to a point, so I'm going to go ahead and do that with a grinder. Now I did see in a video that you're actually recommended to use a stone for nothing but grinding electrodes. However, I don't have a stone that's never been used, so this is just going to have to be good enough for now. I know there's all sorts of stuff to be learned about the exact angles and everything, but I'm just going to call that good enough for now. Well, now I think I've got all the bits and pieces that I need to get this together, so let's see how this goes. So I'll start with the nozzle, or I think it's actually collet body they called it, something like that. Sounds about right to me anyway. Screw that in. The collet should drop in back there. And let's see, I think the cap goes on next. I don't know how tight I can get that yet. Piece of tungsten. really loose. Should be able to tighten this up more. There we go. And then the cup. Okay, now I just need to adjust this. And I'm probably going to get the stick out all wrong, but yeah, we'll try that. Something around there, see how that goes, and tighten it up. Scott sent along these practice pies, and I was going to make that my first attempt to weld, but I think it's probably going to be easier for me to go in a straight line rather than trying to follow a curve around on my first attempt. So I've got some 1/8 inch steel flat bar around. I just cut a couple of pieces, at least close to length, and they should butt up nice to each other. So I'm going to try that for my first go round. Before I do that, I'm going to clean these up, and I'll put a bevel down the inner edges on each one of them. From looking around online, it sounds like 1 amp per 1,000th of an inch is a fairly common guideline just for starters, although people tend to shoot a little lower than that, I think. So I'm going to set this about 110 and see what happens. I've got the pedal set up in the floor. The gas is being regulated to about 5 liters per minute right now. Clamp is just on my metal vise. Usually that works for flux core. I'm assuming it works the same way here. Shouldn't have any trouble. I've got a GoPro, and I bought a cheap welding helmet lens, and I've got that just taped over there because I'm hoping to show you just how poorly this goes. And that's why I've got this big light here, just mostly to help the camera out. Might actually help me out too. Oh, and I'm going to be trying a 3/32 rod. Okay, that's not working. Well, let me try the ground strap directly on the material. Let's see if that does better. Okay, immediate fail. I just welded the rod to that. I don't think I messed up the tip enough that it's going to be a huge issue. I know that you're technically supposed to regrind that if you think there's been any contact, but I'm just going to keep going because I have a feeling this is going to happen more than once. That's definitely not how this is supposed to go. I will say that doesn't look nearly as bad as the first time I tried the flux core weld, but I still don't think that's good at all. I'm having a problem. I don't know if it's the angle, the distance, or what's happening, but it feels like the rod is really sticking in there. I'm not sure what's up with that. Here's what that looks like. This part doesn't actually look that bad, but I'm sure it's not right. This is pretty awful. That one, the filler rod going in felt a little better to me, but clearly I puddled up way too much there. So when I did this, it felt like I would put the filler rod in and it would kind of melt and then stick, and then I'd have to pull it out because it's sticking, and then I'd go to put it down there again and then it feel like it would stick again. So I don't know what was going on there. I tried moving the tip or the torch up at an angle more like that, more to a 90-degree angle, and that didn't seem to work because I really piled up the filler material there when I was doing that, but it didn't feel like it was sticking in there. So there's certainly a fine line somewhere in there that I am totally missing so far. For now, I'm going to have to pull the tungsten out of there and regrind that because obviously I've melted the end. I'm getting my hand too close. Okay, now I'm melting everything. But I've definitely got to figure out how to feed this stuff. It's not working for me. I'm just kind of moving my hand closer. Next thing you know, I'm going to set my hand or glove on fire here. This is the first of my welding, and this is the last of my welding. Unfortunately, it almost looks like it gets worse. This actually doesn't look terrible to me, though. I think I was melting a lot more of the steel than I should have been. I'm not really sure. That looks like too much buildup and probably too much heat in that area. That looks surprisingly good. I didn't expect any section at all to look like this area here. And then it goes to horrible. It's a ton of buildup. And then I'm not sure what was going on back here. I think the amperage is too high, so I'm going to set it down to 100 and see if that's any better. If it's supposed to be able to dial it back or something with a foot pedal, I'm not dexterous enough, at least while standing. Maybe if I were sitting down that would help. But it just basically feels like on or off to me is how it's going to work out with that pedal. One thing that I think I'm seeing on this side is that I've got too much heat. Because I'm noticing, you can see that it discolors the metal obviously from the heat. And it goes all the way out to the edges here. The only place it doesn't is right on the ends where I quit. But otherwise, the discoloration goes all the way out there. It's kind of blue. On the other side, it's ugly. Looks like I've got, I don't know if that just means too much heat or could just mean too much filler or what's happening there. It shouldn't be coming through as bad as it is like that. So yeah, I've got a lot to figure out here, but I think the first step definitely has to be turning down the amperage. There's too much going on there, and I've really got to figure out how to work the filler rod and everything. Oh. I think I just got the tip again, I'm not sure. Huh. Now it looks like I'm burning through the steel. Oh, you know what? I didn't turn my gas back on. That might help. Why not? Practice pies, here we go. So now I'm going to use 1/16 of an inch rod. I've got it set to 79 for amperage. I think that one actually went a little bit better. The only real trouble that I had that I noticed already is that you got to be careful when this changes angle, because then that arc starts getting really long. Doesn't look awful to me from this side, and it's actually not that bad over there either. So I mean, it's still not good, don't get me wrong. I don't think that's good for a second, but that's better than what I've been doing. That one looks even better. From here to here, it looks pretty good. When I tried to cut it off, I don't know what I was doing there, but at least got a stretch that looks pretty good there. I don't even think it's too bad on the inside. That's the section that I just did. I'm working on quite a collection of terrible welds here, but I will say at least the last piece that I did, those practice pies that Scott sent, some of those areas didn't turn out bad at all. There's spots that don't look good and there are spots that don't look bad, so it's certainly a learning curve. And as I keep saying, I've got such a long way to go. I would be afraid to do anything that's any sort of critical part whatsoever at this point, but I think maybe if I just keep practicing on some stuff that doesn't matter, then I maybe can get there. I need a lot of practice and I've got a lot to learn. But the good news is the welder appears to be working pretty well for me so far. Any errors that I can tell are more from the user than the welder. So if I had one complaint about it from what I've done with it, I would say it's the foot pedal, which I want to call a foot switch because honestly it's more like an on-off switch than any sort of pedal that is adjusting anything. And that could be because I'm standing up, maybe it's just me. But there's just not a whole lot of range of motion there, so maybe in the future if I use the welder a lot, I'll look into different foot pedals. Coming from a background of nothing other than flux core welding, TIG welding is such a huge step that I really feel like I don't know anything at this point. With flux core, there are a small amount of variables, so in general it's fairly easy to see what you're doing wrong, and it's a lot easier to pick up flux core welding. With TIG welding, you just start adding more and more and more variables, and when something goes wrong, at least for me, it's hard for me to tell exactly what the problem is. It's just a lot to take in, and keep that in mind if you're considering picking up a welder if you've never done any welding. Basically, flux core is going to be the easiest way to get in, but it's the most limited as far as what materials you can work with and material thicknesses. And then MIG is kind of the middle ground. It'll let you do a lot, but it gets more complicated than flux core. You've got different wire, and you can use different shielding gases with that, where flux core, everything is in the wire, the flux is in the wire. And then when you go to TIG, as you've seen, then there's all these variables, and you really do have a lot to take in. So if you're considering picking up welding as a hobby, I would say maybe just at least try to get your feet wet first with flux core welding. Even if you've got a friend that's got a flux core welder, maybe you can go over there and check that out and see how it works for you. At least get the idea of what welding is about before you consider moving on. I wouldn't imagine many people start off welding with TIG. It's quite a complicated process. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this learning experience for me. If you have, please give the video a like, share, and subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit the bell to receive notifications. As always, thank you for watching, and one more time I want to say a big, huge thank you to John, Scott, and Ryan. Thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it.